What's up you guys, my name is Dwarf and welcome back to LEGO Arts. So in the last video, we did a showcase on a remake of the Red Hood minifigure. So now this time, we're finally revealing the big buildable figure that I've been working on for some time now. And that is going back to the Monsterverse, and that is none other than Type 3 Kiryu, aka Mechagodzilla 3. This has been a character I've been wanting to build for quite a while now, ever since I did the King of the Monster showcase a few months ago. I wanted to go back and do more characters like these, and Mechagodzilla has been a favorite of mine ever since I was a kid, and Kiryu is my favorite incarnation of it because he's so unique. He's more Godzilla-like, and just the story behind the monster itself is really cool. So I wanted to take that character and see if I could turn it into Lego format, and this was the overall result. So why it took so long was because for starters, I've been busy with some other projects with some different showcases, as well as some Let's Plays, and one of the reasons I haven't been recording on Let's Plays is because I think my system might be acting up again, and with that in mind, I decided to take a break and work on some projects. But why I didn't work on this is because I first wanted to make sure I had enough spare parts from my Bionicles and whatever's left of Hero Factory at this point. I wanted to make sure I had enough to where I could build this character and figure out the overall idea of how I could take a monster from a movie and interpret it into what it would look like as Lego format. So after some trial and error and piecing together bit by bit of putting it all together, this was the grand result, and I'm satisfied of how this turned out. So as you guys know the whole drill, we're going to take this figure, do a review on him, explain the process, why I went with this route, and then go from there. So without further ado, let's get... Actually, no, we're not going to get the pedestal up. Whoopsies. Let's just go ahead and get the showcase on the road. Okay, as we proceed through the showcase, I'm going to be moving the camera around a little bit so you guys can get a better look at it. So if there's too much shaking, I do apologize for that. But anyways, one of the challenges first when making Mechagodzilla was figuring out the design of it. So after thinking about it a little bit, I decided to take some ideas that I did with Godzilla. Here, let me get him out for a second. So where you can kind of see they're roughly the same. Also, I made some changes to Godzilla. He's now tall. He's now a little bit taller. I decided to go ahead with this because one of the things that I wanted to do with both Mechagodzilla and Godzilla was I wanted them to be either the exact same height or close to it. And I realized that Godzilla was slightly shorter, and the legs that I had chosen for Mechagodzilla actually made him taller. So I decided to increase Godzilla's height a little bit. So that way, when you look at the two, they're at the same height, or similar enough. So I really like how that came out. And expanding more on that, I went with some of the same ideas that I did with Godzilla, including on taking a connector brick piece, supergluing onto the back, and then building up his tail, which I actually made some changes onto the tail. So if we get a closer look at the tail, you can see he's got the dorsal fins going all the way down to the bottom on about the tail. You can see the very small dorsal fins I made on there. All of these are made by cardboard and then superglued on here. It was super tedious, especially the smaller ones, but after a little trial and error, I finally managed to get it all correct, and make sure all of them stay in place. But one of the changes that I did with Mechagodzilla instead of Godzilla is that I made the tail have more articulation. If you look at the tail, when moving it, you can see that the bottom of the tail actually has some more articulation, and the whole tail itself I can articulate to put it in certain positions, give the idea that maybe he's doing a tail whip, or the tail's coming up or lowering down. So that was something that's the other Godzilla does have that, but the bottom of the tail does not have that small bit. So I decided to expand more on that and actually make it that the whole tail has the articulation. And down here on the tail, I actually had to double check it. I'll check it, but he's got a spike at the end of the tail. Almost to make it like a trident, almost. So I took one of my spare Lego Sai and super glued it on here. Well, first it was super glue. I then swapped to hot glue, which actually stayed on. to give that idea that that small tailpiece is there. This is there. That was actually a little detail I didn't know until I went back and saw the movies and realized, oh, that's actually a cool little detail. So I included that on, and it looks pretty good. With the legs, these are like some old legs from like the early Bionicle sets. I decided to go with these because they make it look more robotic. I modified them slightly with adding in some clay and then super gluing some stud pieces on to match up Kiryu's design. And then after the overall base color, I went back and did the detailing of like these little red triangles on here. Like you could see them on the legs. The feet are from my old Swampfire figure. That I filled in some of these gaps with clay, and then made each of the toes independently before gluing them on. A challenge was making sure that the toes stayed on, and also that as they were drying, they would not stick to the ground. So that was something that I was glad wasn't a huge problem. Moving up more on like his arms. The arms are pretty much the same as with like regular Godzilla. Like they have the overall same design, including of like the pieces that I use. The only difference that I made was on this arm I added in like the repaired robotic part that they have in Tokyo SOS. The hands has some articulation, and then with his hands they actually have like his cannons. This was something that I did with Final Boss Shion, and I think I also did with Gaius from the Jacksepticeye Showcase. But one of the challenges was incorporating clay around each of these like arm pieces while having the overall arm like still have articulation of moving this as well as the hand. It was a bit of a challenge, but once I figured it out, it all stuck together very well. And with the cannons, I actually first did like a cardboard template, and then, hang on, let me refocus on here. I then went back and did the clay to sculpt on top of it to show of like the general cannon design and the design that they have. And this came out pretty cool. And then there's actually some detailing on the chest. Originally with the chest, however, I made some changes to it. It's my last spare like Ben 10 alien figure that I had lying around. I then took that piece, actually sanded off the Omnitrix symbol because I didn't like how that looked. I thought it would look very weird. So I sanded off, and at first I was gonna leave it at that, but then I wanted to expand more on that. So I took some clay and sculpted out Kiryu's torso to match it up with Tokyo SOS. I decided to go ahead with that design because I felt there was more detailing onto that one, and the way how Kiryu's story ended in that movie, I really liked. So I wanted to explore more on that design. Plus, I've seen a lot of variations with Kiryu, mostly from Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. So I decided to focus more on like his second movie because of like some of those design details, and it really looks really cool. Really cool. It was kind of tricky of drawing out like this detailing on here. You can kind of see like these numbers. Hang on, let me scoot in closer and refocus on it. Sorry. You can kind of see that I drew in like the little numbers on here. I had to double check a few times to make sure these were actually here, because it was mostly based off of an action figure. But after seeing like the detailing is in fact on there in this variation of it, I decided to go the extra mile and draw that in a white acrylic marker, which actually turned out really cool. Really cool. I did some detailing on here of like his abdomen leading down, some more detailing on like the sides of his chest to super glued like these brick pieces on here. This one's a little bit more Lego-like than the other figures because I wanted to make this more robotic, and I felt that like adding in more of the brick pieces would achieve making him and capture that like robotic titan that he is. A little detailing on this side of the arm. I didn't do too much of it because this arm actually stayed intact throughout the second movie. His second movie, but I still included that on. Moving on to the back. Okay, sorry. Just making sure this thing was stable. But moving on to the back, you could see that I also sculpted out like his back dorsal fins. I didn't include all of them on because I also wanted to include his like rocket pack. I always felt that the rocket pack was really cool, So I incorporated that in as well. I took some bricks and like put them all together. I measured out of like how far this needed to be, and double checked a few images and saw there is actually a connector in the back. There's actually a connector on the pack to keep the two like together, which I was super glad for that because it would have been so tedious of doing like a measurement of how far it would be from the head, and so that way the head could be articulating, and also making sure that the arms could still move and it just wasn't interfering too much. So that was a little tedious of how that looked. Hang on, let me get this like position out here so we can focus more on Kiryu's head because that's what's left. Also on his back, while we're out here, you can see like some of these like pieces on the back here. Like, hang on, if I zoom in, you can see like these like stud launchers here. I added these on here because they represent of like some of the back thrusters Kiryu has when he takes off in flight mode. So I wanted to add that on here. I took a couple of these like regular like stud shooters that you'd put on the vehicles, filled in the gaps with some clay, and then painted the whole thing silver. So with the overall like design, design of the base color of the silver, I wanted to like first make him silver, but this was one of the obstacles I had. I don't have enough silver paint to paint the entire thing. Like, silver was I knew I wanted to first do the base color and then go back and do all the detailing, but I didn't have enough silver, so I had to go to the hardware store and buy a can of silver spray paint. It was like an aluminum kind of color. I felt that this color actually matches up more with Kiryu. Only other alternatives I would have gone with would be like gray and like this chrome silver I saw on the shelf. And the gray wouldn't look as epic and match up with the character as much, and the chrome would make it look too disco-y. Plus, chrome's not really good for Legos as I found. So with this aluminum color, I felt that this really matches up with Kiryu, and it really makes it look more epic. So I'm really glad that I went with that route. But anyways, after the base color painting, like looking at more of his head, I also went back and did this in a gunmetal color for the rest of his rocket pack, and also went back and did some detailing. Like, you could see the detailing on the sides, to represent the missile launches. If we move the light here, you could see I did a little detailing on like the front of the cannons, to represent like the other missiles this thing carries. I also, so hang on, if I move his neck up a little bit, you could see some detailing on his neck. I didn't get to do all of it because it's a very small area, and I had to work with what I had. So that was a bit of a sadness. But looking at the rest of the figure, like looking at his head was one of the most challenging parts. Not just detailing, but sculpting him out, was a bit of a pain. So one of the things that was a challenge with Kiryu's head was, as when I was sculpting out, I made an error and I didn't realize it until after I had finished. But I took like a connector brick piece, and sculpted out like this ball, and then put it onto the head, and then after I did that, I realized that the head at first was a lot more squishy, and I didn't realize that until I went back and realized that, like, how did I get Godzilla's head to be more stable? And that's when I realized I used a regular brick head already on and just sculpted the head around it. So that was a stupid thing I did and realized, oh, whoops. So unfortunately that was a problem, but luckily the head managed to stay intact overall, and it kept up with the basic design. You could also see like some dorsal fins continue on to the back of the neck, and the head. There is some articulation on the head, not too much of it, but enough to where like he could go up and down, left and right. So I'm glad that remains intact. And I actually had to like build it like one at a time with the head. Especially the mouth. The mouth I felt was one of the hardest parts. Because with some images of images of Mecha G was having, was showing like the mouth like completely closed and closed. Others was like the mouth open and you could see like the cannons. I wanted to like show the teeth, with this character because I already did that with Godzilla, so I wanted to keep that trend on. However, I knew this would be a challenge because, as still to this day, I'm not very good at sculpting out teeth. It's so tedious. It's very, very time consuming, and I still am having trouble with it. So what I did was I actually first sculpted out like the overall design of the jaw, Then I took it off the head and separated the two jaws together, and carefully like took small bits of clay, and like glued it and fused it into each of the jaws as like on their own. And then when it came to putting it back onto the head, I put the jaws on and together and made sure that it would like close up, and that the teeth would match up. And would match up very, very nicely. So you can see like the individual teeth that I included in on each of these ones. This was super tedious, and very hard to achieve. But sure enough, the technique worked. It worked. His mouth is slightly off a little bit, which I'm not too happy about that. But it is what it is. And it still matches up with how Kiryu looks. I then also went back and tried to sculpt out about the rest of his head, including on like the side parts, which you can see like match up with the overall design of his head, and then including in like this top fin or like a top spike, that he has. Then once that was all done, and the base coloring was done, I went back and painted it on his eyes, and then like these red lines that go, they're supposed to go from his eyes all the way to his jaw, but as you can see, I couldn't fully achieve that, matching up with the length, so I worked with what I had, did slight detailing on the sides of it, and then once that was done, I just simply waited for the whole thing to dry, and this came out as the overall result. So, I will admit, that the head could have gone a little bit better, but once you get past that, I really like of how this whole figure came out. This was probably my favorites of all the other ones to do, because this one was definitely more of a challenge of figuring out of how to sculpt the design, how to incorporate the articulation, what sort of technique can I do with a character like this, and overall with the final reveal for Mechagodzilla, I am really proud of how this character came out. So that's gonna do it for this episode of LEGO Arts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, overall, this turned out to be a really fun build to do. And I love that I chose Kiryu, like this version of Mechagodzilla, to build like this iconic character in brick format. The only other versions that I probably would have gone with the most would be like the Super Mechagodzilla. That would have been an interesting design to do, especially of adding Garuda on the back. And the first incarnation of Mechagodzilla, because that one is very iconic, because a lot of people grew up with that version. The Ready Player One version, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it does look pretty cool. And the one from the animation adaptation, I felt was poorly used, and is a very odd design, so I don't think I'll ever do that one. So, but with Kiryu, I felt that this was a cool one, because he's so unique out of all of them. His design is very, very cool looking, and just by seeing these two like side by side is really, really awesome. So I'm really proud of how this came out, and was definitely a challenge to build. But after figuring it out through and making this character, I really love how this came out. So I'm pretty proud of how he looks. So while I was working on Kiryu, I was also wrapping up like some other showcases. Like I finally finished my 2 other Ruby showcases. Which will be like the next couple of episodes, and also wrapped up the Final Fantasy VII Remake showcase. That one is finally done. So we're gonna be recording videos of those showcases and uploading them to the channel. I still have Avatar on hold. Like I mentioned this a while back, but I have the Last Airbender showcase on hold because as I want to see that since the decals that I already printed out didn't come out so well, if I can salvage what I can and make them at least keep up with appearance of how I wanted the characters to look, then we'll proceed on through the showcase. If not, I'll have to wait until I get more printer ink to refix that. to refix them because they came out incorrectly, and I really want that showcase to look really, really cool for you guys. So Avatar will be on hold, and I'm still figuring out like the rest of my showcases because we're coming up to 100 episodes for this series. So I don't know entirely what I have planned for that set, but I definitely want to. I definitely want to make the 100th episode on a really good high note. So we'll see how far that goes. But anyways, if you guys want to check out like the King of the Monsters showcase where I showcased Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidorah, or I'll include a link to that video in the description below, or you can check it out on my LEGO Arts playlist where I also did Kingdom Hearts, Detroit Become Human, God of War, Bendy and Ink Machine, and so many other showcases. But if you guys would like to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. It really helps us. We're gonna let's play LEGO products. And man, that was so fun. So anywho, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, comment below what you think, share it with your friends, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Twitch. And here's the hop of the road. Woo! Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. Winning Ice Moon Rises!